Yeah.
Listen, we're going to turn on to the NDP leadership race, where the pool of candidates just got a little smaller.
It is with huge sadness that I resign from the leadership contest.
That is former candidate Pat Stogran with the video posted yesterday announcing that he's dropping out of the race. Stogran says he's withdrawing because the inner workings of the NDP are, quote, fundamentally flawed. He says the party has put major obstacles in place for grassroots candidates. There are now 5 candidates vying to replace outgoing leader Tom Mulcair. Let's start with you, Katie, on this. Stogran went on to say a number of things, talking about taking on Politics Incorporated, talking about wanting to head into his golden years and spend time with family, et cetera, et cetera. What do you take of Stogran pulling out of the race?
Honestly, I see this as perhaps a timely cautionary tale that you cannot simply run for the leadership of a Canadian federal political party without having some experience within that party itself. I mean, the complaints, he wasn't very specific in terms of sort of outlining his specific objections to what the party rules or the sort of this nebulous sort of senior party management that were putting up these blockades against grassroots candidates. But the reality is he doesn't have years in the party. He hasn't been to conventions for, you know, for ages. He doesn't have that. He doesn't have that history within the culture of the New Democratic Party, which perhaps more than any other federal party is very tightly knit. It's got its own language. It's got its own. Everything about it is very unique, and you have to understand that to hope to run to lead it. And that's why I think Kevin O'Leary found that out as well when it came to the Conservative race. We're not the United States. This is not a primary system where if you get enough people to follow you, you can basically take over a party and run for its leader and control it. It's a very different culture here, and I think it's too bad in the sense that he had some. I mean, if you watched him in I guess what will now be his last NDP leadership debate on last Sunday, he actually did have some, you know, a lot of passion and some interesting ideas, but he didn't seem willing to frame them in a way that would allow New Democratic Party members to really see one of themselves in him. And I think that was his problem. It wasn't so much that, from what I can tell, that the party was putting up blockades. It was more that he wasn't willing to embrace the party. He just kind of wanted to walk in and take over, and that was never going to work.
Well, lots
and
of people...
two obstacles which are embedded in the rules for the NDP leadership, if I read them correctly. You have to put up $30,000 to get in, you know, which can be a considerable amount of money for a lot of people. And number 2, you have to have, I think it's 50 party members endorse you from each of the 5 regions of Canada, and half of them have to be women. So that just basically illustrates Katie's point, that you do have to have some roots in the party and some friends.
Denise?
Yeah, the roots and the friends, and I think he probably didn't make any friends whatsoever when he essentially went after the holy grail of what some would call the NDP base in terms of the unions, and say, look, millennials are under attack from the unions. They can't get any jobs from the labor movement. So that must have been a really hard position for him in terms of folks coming back to him and saying, well, look, we're, you know, as the NDP party, we rely on sort of the union contribution and the support. So he probably didn't make any friends there, but as well, without having, held office, even though he was an ombudsman. But really, I think it made sense. The writing was probably on the wall for him. It made sense for him, especially after the last leadership debate, to sort of, gracefully bow out and let the other remaining 5 candidates continue the good work, I suppose, that they're doing up until September when they elect their new leader. Still, though, he was an interesting man. Master's degree in international relations, a long military career, having dealt with PTSD, obviously veterans' issues at the forefront, but somebody who felt he could contribute across a wider spectrum of issues. Has the campaign or the race, is it going to lose something now without his voice there?
Well, it wasn't exactly a graceful withdrawal. It was kind of a bomb the bridges withdrawal.
Maybe a wake-up call, some might say.
Yeah. We still have Jagmeet Singh, another
in terms of the effect on the race, it did strike me watching the last leadership race on Sunday that he really did seem out of place. The other, well, I guess together now 5 candidates all seem to be kind of working off the same, not the same script, but within the same parameters. Whereas Mr. Stogran was off doing his own thing entirely, which again just doesn't necessarily work. I do think the New Democrats have a timing problem, and it's not, it's just the way the calendar worked out. Only just has the Conservative leadership race wrapped up, thus allowing those of us who obsess over federal politics to pay a little attention to the Democrats. And we're basically 3 weeks away from summer when everyone tunes out, including most political reporters. So they're going to have to really work to keep this race on the sort of the public attention going and the media attention going, or else it's going to be like September and people are going to be wondering why it is that the NDP seems to be suddenly voting on a leadership that no one has been really covering the race. So I think the timing really works against him. I don't think, frankly, this departure makes that any more of a challenge or less of a challenge. It's just the thing that happened.
Guys, I'm going to have to stop you there. Thank you for all your thoughts on a wide variety of issues today. That's all the time we have for. But we want to thank our columnist, freelance columnist Susan Riley, Denise CLA from the SEM Group Public Affairs, and Katie O'Malley from iPolitics.